Hello, everyone. I'm Chris Adet, and this is Dragos Frixandu, and you're listening to my podcast hub, where we discuss the economy, the real estate market, and a touch of politics. Today, we'll be discussing Canada's future outlook. In January, a day before Justin Trudeau resigned, an advisory arm of the federal government released a report with a grim outlook for Canada if we continue as we have been. Go grab your blanket, hurry back. You won't want to miss this. Dragos. Policy Horizons is a Canadian organization within the Federal Public Service that provides guidance and suggestions to federal organizations for policy implementation. In January, they released a report titled Future Lives, Examining Social Mobility. This report says if Canada does not alter course by 2040, several scenarios are likely to become a reality. It will not be a realistic goal for many to own a home. Inheritance is going to be the only reliable way to get ahead, and upward social mobility will be extremely difficult. Juggles, what's this really going to look like?
Chris, I believe that many Canadians may find themselves stuck in the socioeconomic conditions of their birth, and many will face the very real possibility of downward social mobility, which it seems like the times that are coming is the times that they were in the Eastern Europe before the fall of the Berlin Wall, before the 90s.
History repeats itself.
History repeats itself. This is why my parents choose to immigrate to Canada, because of this communist system was installed there, and was very difficult to have a life without having a master. That's the problem with the system that is coming. If we don't do something, is that we will not be free anymore. And to answer completely your question, is that will mean that hardly anyone believes that they can build a better life for themselves or their children through their own efforts, which is very, very, very bad for a country as big and as resourceful as Canada.
So we used to have climbing the corporate ladder, climbing the ladder of success. You work hard, you're consistent, you eventually win. You get a good education, you get a good job, you show value there, you're going to climb up. You own your own home, you're going to build wealth, you're going to build equity. And so my understanding of it is this release basically says that's may not be the case anymore. Is that?
Yeah, exactly what it says. I want to show you something. This is Edmonton Journal, and in their interpretation of this report, they did a very beautiful picture that summarizes what is coming. And those aren't chickens.
I should not laugh.
It's true. We should not laugh. This was maybe a funny idea a few years ago, but this is what is coming up for Canada. And you can see this, can search it yourself on Google. You can use these words: future lives, social mobility, and questions, so you can see for yourself what is coming.
So in this report, like, I have not seen much on this. Like, I have not seen hardly boo about it in the news. Certainly not on TV, not on radio. Googling, you can find a bit of it out there.
Yeah.
There's been a few news reports for sure, but not a lot. I do remember Polyev talking about it at one point when he was campaigning.
Yeah.
But even then, not. And he was bleak. Dude was bleak.
Yeah, it's true. So this was hidden. That's why we call this podcast a Privy Council cover-up. by the mainstream media, which we know that now the most of the media in Canada, which is not alternative media, gets a lot of money from the government, so they will continue push this narrative. For instance, the Carney Broadcast Corporation, the CBC, is receiving is receiving $1.6 billion from the government plus 400 millions in advertising for a total of $2 billion Canadian a year. So that's why we didn't hear about it, Chris.
Well, and it's interesting the power behind that. Personally, I prefer a jumbo jet from Qatar, but hey, that's me.
At least you see it. Yeah, and it's direct.
Yeah,
something, Chris. I did that with Notebook LM, and so this is the this is what the robot had as a title after I input the sources in. So, a dark future for Canada, the 2040 scenario. This is a social mobility question that we're talking about, in which hardly anyone believes that they can build a future for themselves or their children through their own efforts, like I said. And this is the 2 points that I was making. And also many worry about sliding down in the social ladder. And this is what will change from 2024 to 2040. You understand the point, right? So let's consider ourselves in 2040. And this is what changed from last year to 2040, right? We will start with housing because you are a real estate broker and I was a real estate broker before. So in housing in 2040, compared to today, which is today, it started in like for a few years now, but let's say it will get worse. So in 2040, a home ownership is not a realistic goal. You understand?
Well, and so we've been having a number of around the table conversations on this topic with my nieces or my wife's nieces, because they're at that buying age. In fact, frankly, they're a little past where that buying age used to be, where you would start to look at that. And they're all in really, really good jobs, good careers, post-secondary education, interprofessional, almost all in the medical industry within this family. But it's sobering looking at the numbers from where our income, which was much lower, so it's a little tougher for us to see, but where our income though was compared to where the housing prices are, there's a bigger gap now.
Oh yeah.
And that gap is continuing to increase. And yeah, it is a little sobering to see just how difficult it is for a young person now in order to be able to get ahead. And we're seeing in construction within not just this city, but many cities throughout Canada as well, how they're doing multi-generational living, multi-generational building, just to be able to see people being able to afford a house, because now you're cramming, instead of one family in there, 2, sometimes 3 generations. It's different.
Yeah, it is. And you brought the point. So this is what will be a norm: intergenerational mortgages.
Yeah.
You understand? So people will be buying, the whole family will be buying a home. Okay. And also they will have a right now the mortgage can be whatever, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30 years, right? But I believe with the time, that will go to 40, 50, 80 years, 100 years. In Europe, they have 50, 60, 80 years mortgages because it's unaffordable. You cannot buy it.
Yeah. Basically, you're claiming your debt for your children.
Yep.
And your children's children.
Yeah, exactly.
In order to have a house, but a home that will get passed down.
Yep.
And we
Exactly.
don't see that often here. Like we really don't. I had a conversation with a gentleman who was selling his property fairly recently that was talking about our paper houses. Theirs are stone, ours are
Yeah.
paper. Like drywall. It's covered in paper.
Yeah.
So we really do build them to last 60, 70 years here before they need to be basically torn down and reconstructed new versus.
Yeah.
But that fits with what's going on with it too. So homeownership, folks, going to be a little bit less likely for your kids. Unless you're
Exactly.
ponying up the money for it because you've managed to build up, your wealth through that.
Exactly.
That
Exactly.
intergenerational wealth becomes an interesting topic, talking point that they're looking at in that report.
Yep. So the housing will be the so most new owners will get family help, like we talked about it, and home ownership is not a realistic goal. If we see the intergenerational wealth, so inheritance only reliable way to get ahead. So what you just said. So if you're not getting a few $100,000 or $1 million in some provinces, you will never buy a home. And society will resemble aristocracy. Do you realize where we're heading, man?
Yeah. Well, I think, without going too far into that, because that's another wormhole, but I think we're starting to see some of that going on
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah.
And our generation, Dragos, you and I,
Yeah.
we, well, I shouldn't speak for you, but, we looked at our parents and we said, stop saving your money for us, for the will. That's crazy. Spend your last dollar on your last day.
Exactly.
We don't need it. For our
Exactly.
generation to the growing children, though, that that could be a little different. They may well need it.
Yeah. Yes, it's true. It's true. And I want to show you here the post-secondary education that I found really, really, really good. Not good, but a point that we have to look at. So this, you know what people would say: go to college, get a good education, get a job, get a home, get the lawn, the dog, and the family. Not in that order, obviously. And you will have a beautiful life, right?
Mm-hmm.
So now in 2040, the post-secondary education, it's not a reliable path for mobility. Mobility, when we say mobility, it's going from a person that is considered, let's say, a low income to a person that is considered a middle class, or a person that is considered middle class to go to the level of high class or have yachts or whatever you want to call them, oligarchs, whatever.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know if they say it directly in this report, but that middle class, which, hey, we're pretty lucky to have in North America. But I believe they're saying that will begin to disappear.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And see, there will be the elite membership. We all know the elites in this country will just have more power than right now. It's that simple. And what do you think this will change, Chris? Let's have you wait on this.
Well, and so I think that's a good example of what might end up going on through a lot of this. More and more people will ditch post-secondary
Yeah,
education.
yeah,
Why? Why go if it's not going to do you any good? We went from generations that went to university to choose your career, to explore your life in that career so that you could, get a home, get a family, get ahead, take vacations. Over our generation, we started to see that already starting to wane, where it was get an education so that you can get a job. Not in the career. Chances are very good, but you still had to have that education really to be even considered anywhere. And now it just seems like a moot point that it's there whatsoever. We have very different careers that are taking off for people. and largely it is who you know, not necessarily what you know that will drive you up there.
Exactly.
And if this does continue to get worse, which it probably will, and according to this report, we're on that path. Yeah, things are going to change drastically for the haves and the have-nots.
Yeah.
We have more haves, but we have way, way, way more have-nots.
Exactly. And just to confirm and make sure people understand, this is from a report from a private council, which is a liberal office. So this is the most liberal office of the liberal government. So this is not like a smear campaign by the conservatives. No, this is the liberals saying that if we continue with the liberals, this is where we're going. And people still voted for the liberals, man.
Yeah. It was ironic on the timing with this coming out, and I don't know, maybe Trudeau thought that it would gain more news. I mean, the stuff going on with Christian Freeland, this Privy Council report, and then him basically, if I'm not mistaken, it was the very next day after this release that he officially resigned. Obviously,
Exactly.
he had his heads up that
yeah.
this was coming and what was in it. But yeah, I mean, this organization basically helps the government set policies through suggestions, through their research on what the future can and possibly will look like. And this isn't a given. This report is not this will happen. This is listen up, guys. This could very well happen if we continue down the path. That'd be a fair treatment?
Yeah, exactly. And see here, aspiration and expectation. This is the danger, Chris, because few maintain the drive to innovate and succeed. Why do we talk about this? Because this is a vicious circle. So when you start going down that path, and when people start to think about surviving instead of build a life of great adventures and beautiful times with family, when they start to focus on surviving and having food and shelter to not die, then the drive of innovate and success and motivation and build something to get a bit of beautiful future, a bit of better future, goes down to zero almost. And then the population can stay in that lethargic state for years and decades. This is what happened with communists in Eastern Europe for 30 years. This is what happened. And it's the same policies. I see them here.
Well, I think we see it here, particularly in the West. The separation of Alberta and separation of the West from the rest of Canada, I think, is largely kind of how we're seeing this culminate today. I mean, just speak frankly, I don't agree with it. I don't think we'd have really too much of a shot, but I think this is where we're starting to see the real life examples of people getting a little bit fed up. It used to be people immigrate into Canada for a better life.
Yeah.
Now we're seeing kind of a lot more people are talking about emigrating out of Canada to get that better life because they're not seeing it here.
Yeah.
And with that, the growing talk of, well, hell, let's just start our own country.
Exactly. And we said that, I believe, in a podcast. If the liberals win, then the separatist sentiment and movement will grow exponentially. And this is what they did. Plus, the other danger is the artificial intelligence. So that's we're still in the category of changes, right? So the value of human labor will shrunk. Reliance on gig and side hustles will increase. Hard to say for a business start, of course, because banks will lend less in a bad economy. And expensive AI reinforces inequality. So this is in the changes since 2024, right? The difference. And what I would like to do now, it's the policy implications. one of the things that is it's difficult to see and to accept is that we are in a mental health crisis. It's true. We shouldn't talk about it, because if we talk about it, we focus and we grow it. I understand that, but it is true that we are at that point, and this will only make this problem grow with the mental health of the people in 2040. So this and what I will read here, it's what happened in communist countries, even Romania before 89, Venezuela, Cuba. People just have to go to Cuba to see exactly what Canada will look like in 2040 if we continue that path. It's very simple. So the stress from affording basics worsens mental health. So when you can't even have electricity or water, forget about medicine and food, just at least electricity and water, then you imagine what happens to your mental health. The increase for the demand for social services, it's there, so that demand will increase. And if the government has less money, the services will be of lesser quality. And frustration leads to unhappiness, fewer psychological resources for volunteering. That's another thing. What I found that is very beautiful here when I came from Romania is that people do a lot of volunteering. A lot. It's so beautiful. A lot, like 100 times more than I'm used to. Okay. It's so beautiful, but that will take a hit, unfortunately. And just hope for work-life balance, meaningful work. What do you think, Chris, that the policies, the change that we have to have in policies to not be at that point in 2040?
Yeah, well, and I think that bodes a real question that was faced here at our last election, because we do have two factions of government that have very different approaches. I'm not going to comment on what Carney's and he as a person is, because I think that's yet really to be seen. But we talked a little bit about social funding to help people out, and how that is very good and very needed, and we're very strong on that in this country. But how too much of it, you got to fund stuff somehow. Yeah. You can't just give money out and then just expect that it's going to pop out of nowhere, or that you just print it and keep printing it, because that's not a realistic long term. And the conservatives kind of have the opposite approach, to the extreme, as you're seeing in the States, kind of a Doge approach, hack slash everything, just it's an expense, turf it. So that middle ground balance, I think, becomes extremely important. Having 4 terms of a political party that is very much about giving it out and expecting that we can print to give it back I think there's a reason we're seeing that revolt. I think certain areas of the country see where we're cutting off business for the larger social acceptability, but not necessarily in the brightest way. And I think we need to come back to our business basics and not forget about our social responsibilities at the same time. I really do. I think it's that big balance. And I know I speak like that's simple and easy to hit, and it's most definitely not. But we do need a bit more of that balance, and we can't just keep cutting off major industries for larger global socioeconomic motives, particularly when they're not realistic.
Exactly.
Holding yourself to this level and watching everybody else, dip down, that doesn't really make sense. We need to get our energy corridors going. We need to start exporting we need to realize that we should be damn proud of what we do and how socially responsible we as Canadians and even our large corporations, such as oil and gas, actually are when you compare to a lot of the rest of the world. That's my soapbox there. But I think we need to start working with the government. The government really needs to start working with us to see this happen. And the tech sector, we can't ignore that it's there. It either goes to nefarious countries that maybe won't play by the same rules, or we up our game in that as well. Like how you pulled up some of those talking points for Canada. I mean, that's just the tip of the iceberg for the whole AI and where that goes. We need to start educating on that side in a very realistic way and entice people to come back into universities and secondary schools because we're keeping up with the times.
Yeah, exactly. That's very well explained. And because if not, people will lose faith in the Canadian project.
And I think it started.
You understand? It's already started. It's already started. It's been years now. Okay, it's true. But it will be at the point that the report says it. That there will be uprisings when Canadians realize how poor and broke they are, and that the government doesn't have the money that it says it have, Chris. Okay, that's another subject, including the pension plan and all that. Okay, I don't want to get into details because I'm not the expert, and today it's a different subject. But maybe one day we'll do something to explain, the money and how the money work in the government, and the type of expenses that the government does, and why we need to have a small government. Okay, that's another point. But the people will lose faith in this if it continues at the point where there's the point of no return. And in the report, it says that some of people will start to hunt.
Yeah,
urban hunters and fish in the North Saskatchewan River here in Edmonton. You'll see people fish and hunt in the river valley, man. Do you realize that? It's not funny. It's not funny. So it's not funny.
It's pretty wild when you think about it. Just what we'll end up going back to do. But I mean, it's a very real, not necessarily that I think that's actually horribly bad as long as they're not hunting in the cities, but
Exactly.
But they are painting that picture.
Oh yeah. And just to finish with the policies, I found that very, very important to talk about it. Right, the policy implications right here, and because the economy will shrink and be less predictable, and less predictable means more volatility, and we know what that means on the markets. It's up and down. It's chaos.
Mm-hmm.
So because of that, the capital concentrated with wealthy older people. The capital will stay with the wealthy older people. You understand? And this will also reduce foreign direct investment. When the people are anxious and no motivations, and the economy shrinks and it's unpredictable. So that reduces foreign investment, property ownership more concentrated. That will be companies that will buy homes and then rent it out, which is the next point. Younger generation favor renting, which is already happening, and higher rental costs. So those are problems that they should be addressed immediately. See, mental health will suffer. Obviously, we talked about it. And another thing that might happen, and a lot of people that I know think about it, going back to their older countries. So people that have immigrated here, in the past 10 years, 20 years, especially from Eastern Europe, they will go back to Eastern Europe. That's a big deal. You'll see that if this continues.
We are seeing a lot of that I've noticed anyway, and in my conversation.
It's true. It already is here. Yeah. A lot of people from Europe go back to Romania. A lot of them, Moldavia. We know that because we look from Europe. But when we'll start here, the big problems with everything, not only policies, because this immigration is included in the problems that the Liberal government created, mass immigration. I'm an immigrant, okay? So I love immigration, not mass illegal immigration. So because of that, Canada will be less attractive for migrants. And young workers, this is the bad one that I want you to see, living harder to pay for older people's support. You understand? So the young people have to work even harder than now, Chris, to support the older people of this country. So in conclusion, there's a lot of things to say, but this is the one that I don't want people to lose faith in the Canadian project. Another problem that is to embrace radical ideas that people can do if they are unhappy and they have no hope. They will embrace radical ideas. And reject, and also an uprising can happen if nothing changes.
Yeah,
which is scary to think about it.
When we've been seeing those last two happening, right? Like our crime rates have been steadily rising.
Yeah,
almost to an epidemic level.
Yeah,
I'm in a really good neighborhood down here in Calgary. I got to tell you, the security cameras are everywhere, and they're capturing people breaking into cars, garages.
Even in Calgary?
Here in Calgary, yeah, for sure. Very nice neighborhood. We're seeing the tent cities more and more and more and more. Looking off to the sides into the wooded areas as we drive down, main streets. We're starting to see more and more of that, and we're starting to see rallies, at the federal buildings more and more and more, with a lot more angry people than I would have ever thought possible all that long ago. So I mean, this stuff is happening, and this isn't the first time that this council has done this. They do it basically on a yearly basis, and it's just gotten a little bit worse and a little bit worse each time they do it too. And the government has known about this because it is their government.
Exactly. Exactly. And I would like to repeat this one more time, which is very important, and for because people at one point will have to relax if we go to that point, and think about it and not react, not be emotional, because the people at one point, like you say, it started now and it started for years, okay? In Canada, in other countries, maybe started for more than that. You understand? Because we here are a rich country. We get it later. And because people may reject systems they believed have failed them. Yeah. You understand? So when that happens, God forbid, shouldn't happen, but then it can be a societal collapse. I'm not talking about wars or something like that. It's just that people will not they will not pay their income tax. They will just steal and not give a damn about it. Like we said, motivation will go down and all that. And that's if you get that to a society, then that society is done.
Quiet quitting became a thing and a buzzword. Yeah.
It's true, Chris. It's true. Quiet quitting. Yeah. And it started in China, I believe. And there's another version of it. It's called let it rot. Like the second step of quieting, it's let it rot.
Yeah.
And that's what the Chinese youth are doing right now. That we can talk about it because I like economy, so economics.
Yeah.
So in China right now, there's a lot of problem with the young people that are getting out of the university and find no job. It's a very big problem
for the economy. Productivity is great, apathy not so great. And if we kind of motivate people towards apathy,
exactly,
we'll all end up paying the price.
And so, Chris, I have a lot of content, of course, but I think we looked at the most important points. And I want to finish with this. Albert Einstein, I like the guy a lot. I like mathematics and I like logic. But he was also a very creative mind, because the way he was realizing concepts is that he was putting himself as that. Like if he's studying neutrons, whatever he studied, then he in his head he become that to see what happens. You understand?
Mhm.
So that's why I like him a lot. He could use his both hemisphere of the brain. And one quote that I really like is, insanity is doing the same thing all over again and expecting a different result. So this is what happened with the last elections, when the liberals were voted in after 10 years of really bad policies.
I got to say, that's probably the perfect spot to end it on, because that's basically what it is. And that is, what is causing the large disruptions out here in the West that we're seeing now. Stop the insanity.
Yeah. Stop the insanity. I like it. So, Chris, yeah, I'm done.
Okay. Well, Jarvis, on the flip side of that, let me close with this if I could. We're coming into spring here. After cold winter here in Canada, the minute it warms up, everybody's out in their shorts because we're a positive person. So here we go. Let's maintain that positivity. Let's start to see things go in the right direction, and let's get out there in our shorts. Guys, please subscribe. It's been great chatting with you. Thanks for listening in. We'll be doing another deep dive next week.
Yeah. Thank you, guys. Have a great day.